I never thought I'd lose everything while serving my country overseas, but that's exactly what happened. While I was deployed on active duty, halfway around the world with no way to check in regularly, my own homeowners association sold the land I owned, legally mine, fully paid off, and the place I planned to return to when I got back home. No calls, no emails, no warning, just gone. And by the time I found out, someone else was living on what used to be mine. At first, I was shocked, then furious. How could a homeowners association, something that's supposed to maintain lawns and enforce quiet hours, have the power to strip me of my property while I was out defending the very rights they used against me? But I wasn't about to let it go. Not when everything I worked for was taken without a fight. I started digging, and what I found, it went deeper than I ever expected. Shady bylaws, missing notices, loopholes they'd used before on other homeowners who didn't have the means, all the time, to push back. But I had something they didn't count on, the support of the military and the law on my side. So I launched a plan, a big one that would flip the script completely and leave the HOA stunned when the tables finally turned. You won't believe how it ended. Let's just say, by the time I was done, they were the ones packing up. And that's where this story really begins. Before I deployed, I bought a small piece of land in a quiet neighborhood. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. It was supposed to be my peace after the chaos of military life. I paid off everything, stayed on top of my responsibilities, and even set up automatic payments for the minimal HOA dues. I thought I did everything right. So when I got back and found out my land had been auctioned off by the HOA for what they claimed were unpaid fees, I couldn't believe it. No notice, no court order, just sold. I tried reaching out to the HOA board. No one gave me straight answers. Emails were ignored. Phone calls went to voicemail. One board member actually told me it was just business. That hit hard. These people weren't just enforcing rules, they were profiting from them. I started talking to other homeowners in the area, and that's when I realized I wasn't the only one. A few folks had lost property over small infractions. One guy lost his backyard shed and a piece of his fence line because it violated visual guidelines. This wasn't just a paperwork mistake, this was a pattern. Something about it felt targeted, like they knew I was away and couldn't defend myself. And with the land gone, there was no clear path to getting it back. But I wasn't going to be another quiet casualty of their system. That's when I reached out to the base legal office, and things started to move in a whole new direction. When I brought everything to the base legal team, they were stunned. One of the attorneys, who'd seen a lot over the years, told me this wasn't just shady, it could be illegal. They immediately flagged the lack of proper notice as a violation of the Service Members Civil Relief Act, a law designed to protect people like me who are serving overseas from exactly this kind of abuse. That gave me hope, but also made me wonder, if this law exists, how many other service members have been taken advantage of like this? While the legal wheels slowly started turning, I kept digging. I pulled public records, looked into the HOA's meeting minutes, even went back years to track their property seizures. Turns out, the HOA president was also linked to a private real estate group, one that just happened to buy foreclosed HOA properties at bottom dollar prices. It was all legal on the surface, but when you lined up the timing and the connections, it reeked of something much worse. I met with a neighbor, an older veteran named Carlos, who had lived in the neighborhood for over 20 years. He told me he'd watched the HOA change over time, from a community-run group to something more like a business, where the same few people kept rotating board positions and passing new rules without votes. He'd been fined for ridiculous things, like the color of his mailbox or having a flagpole too tall. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about me. This was bigger. Once I realized how deep this went, I knew I couldn't take it on alone. The base legal team helped me file a formal complaint under the Service Members Civil Relief Act, and that got the attention of some higher-ups. Suddenly, the HOA that had ignored me for months was getting official letters, and not just from lawyers, from federal agencies. But even then, they kept pushing back, acting like they'd done nothing wrong. They were confident, maybe too confident, like they'd done this before and gotten away with it. What they didn't expect was the investigation expanding beyond my case. Once word got out, other homeowners, some military, some not, started coming forward. Stories poured in. People fined into foreclosure over late trash bins, wrong fence paint, or missed dues by a few dollars. Some had moved out in frustration, leaving their homes behind. One woman said her parents lost their home while battling cancer because they couldn't keep up with minor code violations. It was heartbreaking, but also fueling something bigger than me, something louder. Behind the scenes, pressure was building. Legal teams, reporters, even a few local officials started poking around. But the HOA was still playing tough. They filed counterclaims, accused me of defamation. One board member even showed up at my old property, now occupied by strangers, trying to intimidate me face to face. But I stood my ground. Because what they didn't know was that I wasn't just fighting for my land anymore. I was setting up something that could flip their entire world upside down. Just when I thought things couldn't get more twisted, I got a letter, this time from the new owner of my land. It wasn't from a family or someone who'd just bought it off an auction site. It was from a shell company, registered out of state, with no real name attached. They claimed they had bought the land fair and square and were threatening legal action if I kept showing up or disrupting their property. That's when the second plot twist hit me. This wasn't just about greedy HOA board members. This looked like a coordinated effort to flit undervalued properties to outside investors, all under the radar. I passed the letter to the legal team, and they flagged something immediately. The company that now owned my land was linked to the same real estate group, tied to the HOA president. It was a loop. The HOA was issuing fines and seizing properties, and then quietly funneling them into investment portfolios. That changed everything. It wasn't just abuse of power, it was potential fraud. And if they were doing it to me, there was a good chance it had happened to dozens of others, maybe even more. The stakes were now way higher. What started as a personal fight for my property had grown into uncovering what could be a full-on property scam wrapped in the disguise of HOA enforcement. But I wasn't backing down. In fact, I was about to make my boldest move yet, one that involved the military, the courts, and a very unexpected ally. With everything piling up, the fake company, the HOA's shady ties, the mistreated homeowners, it was time to go all in. I worked with a military legal rep and filed a federal lawsuit, not just for the violation of my rights under the Service Members Civil Relief Act, but also for fraudulent seizure and conspiracy to defraud property owners. That alone rattled the board. But what really shook things was when the military stepped in directly. Because of the way my rights were violated while on deployment, the case triggered a full review involving federal housing protections for service members. Then came the big day in court. The HOA board showed up with smug faces, still acting like they were untouchable. But as the evidence came out, emails, property records, connections between board members and the buyer company, their confidence cracked. Even the judge seemed taken aback at how organized the whole scheme was. When my case was ruled in my favor, the court didn't just void the sale, they froze multiple other transactions tied to that shell company. And then came the real surprise. Turns out, the so-called investment group had been operating in other neighborhoods too, using different HOAs as cover. My case opened the door for a larger federal investigation. The board members involved, they're now facing serious legal consequences. But here's the final twist. When the land was returned to me, I found out it had quietly increased in value during the dispute, and instead of selling it off, I made a decision that would change everything for the entire subdivision. After the case closed and the land was officially back in my name, I had a choice to make: move on and forget it all, or turn what happened into something better. I chose the second. Instead of selling the land, I worked with a group of local veterans and turned it into a small community garden and gathering space for the neighborhood. It wasn't flashy, but it sent a message. This land wasn't just dirt and numbers. It meant something, and it was ours again. The HOA. It was restructured. Several board members resigned, and a new group, made up of actual residents, stepped in. They'd brought back transparency and shut down those shady policies. A few of the homeowners who had been forced out were able to challenge their cases too, using my case as a reference. Some even got their properties back. The neighborhood slowly started to heal. As for me, I didn't go through all of this for revenge. I did it because people in power should be held accountable, especially when they prey on those who can't defend themselves. And if my story helps even one other person stand up and say, "This isn't right," then it was all worth it. So yeah, the HOA tried to sell my land while I was deployed, but in the end, I got it back, exposed a scam, helped fix a broken system, and built something stronger than what they took from me. Sometimes, standing your ground means more than just fighting back. It means changing everything around you.